Assalamu alaikum dear students. Today we discuss about the Neil Bohr atomic theory, which is mentioned in chapter number 2 atomic structure on page 45 and 46. Neil Bohr's atomic theory. In 1913, Neil Bohr presented a new atomic theory to overcome the defects of the Rutherford's atomic model. The electron will move on the circular path and ultimately fall in the nucleus. However, it does not happen. Like you can see on your screen that the atom consists of a central portion called a nucleus, consists of a positively charged proton, and the electrons revolve around the nucleus. When these electrons revolve around the nucleus continuously, so the electron could fall into the nucleus. This does not happen actually. So for that purpose, Bohr used hydrogen atom as a model, because hydrogen and hydrogen-like atoms only have one electron and thus don't experience electron correlation effects. This atomic model was based on the following assumptions. Like you can see on your screen that the hydrogen atom consists of one proton and one electron. Electron revolve around the nucleus and proton is present at the nucleus. Now the main points or the postulates of the Bohr atomic theory. The first one is the orbit or the energy level. Electrons are revolving around the nucleus in one of the fixed circular path called shells or orbit. Each orbit has a fixed energy. These orbits are also called energy levels. You can see on your screen that the Bohr model of the atom consists of a nucleus and the electrons revolve around the nucleus and the orbit or the energy level. When these electrons revolve around the nucleus in a fixed circular path called shells, orbits, or the energy levels. The second main postulate is the energy of electron. The energy of the electron in an orbit is directly proportional to the distance from the nucleus. Energy of the electron is directly proportional to the distance. When the number of shells increases, so the distance increases. And when the distance increases, so the energy of the electron will also increases. The further the electron from the nucleus, the higher will be the energy. Like you can see on your screen that the number of shells increases, so increasing distance from the nucleus and also increasing energy. Then the third one postulates the energy of the orbit. As long as the electrons are revolving around the nucleus in fixed circular orbit, they don't gain or lose energy. Energy of an orbit is fixed. Energy is quantized means energy of an orbit is fixed. Energy is quantized means fixed. Then you can see on your screen that the atom consists of electrons having the fixed energy. Electrons orbit the nucleus in the circular path of the fixed energy or the energy levels. Then the radiations. When an electron jumps from a higher energy orbit to the lower energy orbit, it radiates energy. When it jumps from the lower energy orbit to the higher energy orbit, it absorbs energy. You can see on your screen that when the electron absorb energy, so the electron move from the lower energy orbit to the higher energy orbit and absorption of energy occur. And when the electrons move from the higher energy orbit to the lower energy orbit, so the emission of energy takes place. Then we further proceed at the higher energy orbit and the lower energy orbit. Frequency is the number of waves that pass a fixed point in unit time. The rate at which the changes occur per second. Frequency is measured in units of hertz, means that the number of waves pass in a fixed circular path in a per unit time. Then energy differences. The energy differences between the two energy levels is given by del E is equal to E2 minus E1 is equal to H nu. H is equal to Planck's constant, nu is equal to frequency, E1 is equal to lower energy orbit, E2 higher energy orbit, and del E is the energy differences. So these are the differences between the two energy levels. Like you can see on your screen that the E1, E2, E3 and so on. So that's the energy differences between the shells is equal to HF and H mu. Then E1 and E2, when the electron absorb energy in the form of a photon means the packets of energy, so the electrons move from the lower energy orbit to the higher energy orbit. Residence. Electron can reside in any one of the orbit and cannot stay in between them, means that the electrons revolve around the nucleus in a fixed circular path and they cannot stay in between them. Then we proceed that the momentum, the quantity of a motion of a moving body measured as a product of its mass and velocity. Momentum means motion, and motion having and motion in an object having mass and velocity. P is equal to mv. M is equal to mass, V is equal to velocity. Velocity means that a speed. Velocity means that a speed in a given direction. Momentum means motion. Then we proceed that the P is equal to mv. Like for example, if you have any body in motion, momentum, so that body having a mass and velocity. Then angular momentum. Now we discuss about the angular momentum. We know that the momentum is equal to mass and velocity. But now we discuss about the angular momentum. We discuss about the electrons, and electrons move in a circular path. So the electrons move in a circular path having mass, velocity. So it's called the angular momentum. And angular momentum of an object moving in a circular orbit equal to its mass, the velocity and the radius of the orbit. Bohr assumed that the angular momentum of the electron can take on only certain values equal to an integer times Planck constant divided by 2. Formula about the angular momentum mvr of electron is an integral multiple of h divided by 2 pi. mv is equal to nh divided by 2 pi. N is equal to the number of shells, m is the mass of electron, v is the velocity of electron, r is the radius of the orbit, and h is equal to the Planck constant, and its value is 6.6262 multiplied by 10 raised to the power minus 34. Derivation: how we derive that formula mv is equal to nh divided by 2 pi means that every object has a mass. So it's equation number 1. Radius directly proportional to the number of shells. When the number of shells increases, so the radius increases. So it's equation number 2. Velocity is inversely proportional to the circumference of a circle. Velocity inversely proportional to the circumference of the circle. Circumference of the circle means that 2 pi. When the circle is large, so the velocity is small. Combining equation 1, 2 and 3. When we combine these equation 1, 2 and 3, so mvr directly proportional nh divided by 2 pi. If we remove the proportionality sign and convert it to the equality sign, so h is used. H means the Planck constant is used. mvr is equal to nh divided by 2 pi. You can see on your screen that the electron move in a circle having a radius and mass and velocity. Representation of the shells. The orbit defined by the Bohr is also called a shell or the energy level. These are represented by the alphabets K, L, M, N and so on. The letters electrons present in K shell, n is equal to 1, have the least energy and it's the nearest to the nucleus. L shell, n is equal to 2 is the next shell which is the higher in energy than the K shell and so on. Means that the Bohr model of an atom having shells, and these shells are named by K, L, M, N alphabetical name, and the numbered are 1, 2, 3 and 4. So the first shell is K shell, second L shell, M, third one M shell, and fourth one N shell and so on. Limitations of the Bohr model: work only to single electron atoms, could not account for the intensities or the fine structure of the spectral lines, could not explain the binding of atoms into molecules.